For the evening. Thank you. So as I mentioned before, I'm Eugene Weir. Here's my contact information. You can also find us by searching OSU Land Steward Program. Uh, if you want to reach out to me, this is a good way to find me. Also, if you want to learn about other future offerings, and not just the offerings of the Land Steward Program, but we also on our webpage post offerings from small farms and other Master Gardeners programs that we feel are of interest to land stewards. So there's a pretty broad offering of events there. Definitely check it out. Here are some of the ones coming up. So you're here for inviting birds into your yard and into your life tonight, but this presentation on Zoom also has a field component to it that'll be happening this Saturday. And that'll be a field trip at North Mountain Park with Shannon. It's from 9:30 to 11:30, but we also found out that the city of Ashland is going to be doing their practice evacuation drill in that same time frame. And North Mountain or Mountain Street is one of the routes. So I would advise getting there a little early so that you don't get snarled up in traffic if people are using that route to access the evacuation corridor out to I-5. There's good parking in front of the park, but there's also good parking across the street in the neighborhood across from the park. And that may be an easier place to drive out of when it's over. So I don't think there'll be any conflict with the evacuation, but you may want to show up a little early if you're coming to the field trip. Also on Saturday, there's a fire resiliency learning circle happening up in Butte Falls. If you're from that neighborhood, you might want to join that and learn about what's happening for, fire planning in that area. There's a lot of fire related and controlled burning presentations coming up in November. November's gonna be pretty busy. So November 5th, we have mega fires, floods, and fungi. That'll be an online presentation. And then November 6th, we have a forest restoration management and climate resilience wildlife habitat Zoom presentation. And that will also be followed up a couple days later with a field tour. And that's up on the Pacific Forest Trust property, headwaters of Neal Creek here above Ashland. So that'll be really interesting and maybe an opportunity to see some controlled burn either happening or just about to happen. Also on November 8th, there's a native seed stratification presentation happening in Central Point. I believe that is a Master Gardeners or Small Farms presentation. And then we have a prescribed burning for private landowners and land stewards in Oregon, November 18th, also happening online. So it's another good one to look out for if you're interested in that topic. But tonight we're here to learn about inviting birds into our yards and into our life. We are blessed to have Shannon Rio with us. Shannon's on the board of Klamath Bird Observatory, and because of its work to protect birds and wild places in nature. She's a wildlife educator and with a goal to connect people with nature so they will want to care for and protect what they love. Amen. She teaches classes in various settings, teaches yoga, works as a nurse practitioner, and is devoted to family, friends, and community. And I would say heavily and deeply devoted to bird conservation and enjoying birds, wild birds. So really happy to have Shannon tonight. Thank you for being with us. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the share over to you. So I'll stop sharing and let you load your presentation there.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Oh, good. It worked. This is a sandhill crane. It's not in your backyard, but it's such a pretty picture. I wanted to start by just saying that I use a lot of photography, almost totally local photographers. My husband, Kirk Gooding, Jim Livadeus, and many other local photographers. So I don't Google and look for things. So let me see if I can forward this, and it's stuck for a minute, but I'm sure it will go in a moment. Let's try something else.
Sometimes you have to click once on the Zoom screen before you begin advancing.
Oh, yes. I don't know. I just like that picture. That's it. Welcome. Now this is a snowy plover, so it's also not in your yard, but I just think it's a very cute bird. Welcome to my world, to the world of birds. This is a sandhill crane in a snowstorm, and the photo is by Chad Sabatka, a local beautiful human being. Welcome to my world. Inviting birds into your yard. This is a photo by Wendy Gear, and it shows like if this was a Christmas tree, it would be like yellow lights everywhere. These are goldfinches. And I don't know about you all, but right now at my bird feeder, I have a lot of goldfinches. Inviting birds into your yard and into your life. I want to say something about this picture. Um, my husband and I lived in a condo that was very small. We didn't have much outdoor space, but we had a little deck, and on the deck was a mirror and was this Buddha. And this song sparrow would come every fall and just hang out looking at the Buddha. And why it looks like there are two song sparrows is because it's an image in a mirror. Right now, I have a song sparrow in my yard, and I live 2 blocks above the Safeway. Song sparrows do not belong in my yard. They really belong near water down by the creek. But my hypothesis is that this song sparrow is migrating here. Some live here all year round and some migrate. And the ones that had their babies up in the north this summer are coming south now to have their winter home. Anyway, song sparrow. The presentation has several parts. How do you invite birds into your home, in your yard? You do it with feeders, you do it with water, you do it with shelter, and you do it with habitat. And so this presentation has those 4 sections, and at the end of each section, I'll pause, and if there's questions in the chat, we can take them then. So the most common bird at the bird feeders in the entire United States is the black-capped chickadee. This is a bird feeder that has sunflower seeds in it, which are a really good source of nutrition for birds. Black-capped chickadee. This is, oh, let me go back. I want to say something about the black-capped chickadee. The chickadees, which will nest in your yard, lay like 6 to 8 eggs. And when they hatch, that family of birds, those 6 to 8 babies, require 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars delivered by their parents to sustain them through birth and through their first flight, which happens in 2 weeks. So the first thing I want to say is you want to invite insects into your yard. Insects are, I bow down to insects. Purple finches. So purple finches and house finches, well, they look a lot alike. The males are kind of reddish. The females are kind of brownish. What makes a finch is that they're a little bird and they have notched tails, undulating flight. And what I want to just hold up for a minute, even though you can't see it very well, is when you have a guidebook, I tab mine. Every species of bird, finches, ducks, hawks, you go to that section of your book and it will tell you what makes a finch or what makes a sparrow a sparrow. Since I love books, I live inside my guidebook, and I invite you to do that too. This is a purple finch, also a very common bird at my feeder. I'm looking at my feeder right now. This is the female. So females are very quiet looking. Males looking one way and females looking another way is called dimorphic. Not all species are dimorphic, but many are. And it's because females have to have a much quieter appearance than the males because they often are the ones that are sitting on eggs and taking care of babies. The males have to be brighter because that's how they get the girl, is by their color and their song. So, purple finch, juncos. So, juncos are really interesting. They're a sparrow, and juncos are altitudinal migrators. And what that means is in the winter, they come and you will have a lot of them at your feeder here in the Rogue Valley. But in the summer, they go up to the mountains to breed. That's called altitudinal migration. Many birds that migrate breed north and live in the winter south. And in the case of the junco, breeding north just means going up to the Cascade Mountains. This is a junco. And I just want to show you, they're also dimorphic, even though they look very much alike. This is the male, dark head, just more robust looking. This is the female. It's the same species, but quieter, gray head, not black, just quieter in appearance because she has to be the one that does most of the nesting and caring for kids. And one thing about having feeders is you never really know what's going to show up at your feeder. So, again, we're looking at a feeder that seems to have a lot of sunflower seeds in it. There's lots of things you can put in feeders. You can put in thistle for goldfinches. You can put in chipped sunflower seeds. You can put in millet. It's all really great. And I'm a big proponent of buying your bird seed from stores that support conservation. In Ashland, that's the Nature Shop, and in Medford, it's Wild Birds Unlimited. The bird, there's a downy woodpecker on one side. There's a chickadee on the other side, and this is a really fun picture because it's a chestnut-backed chickadee, which you hardly ever see at feeders. But when you have a feeder, things show up that you never expect, and that's part of the fun of feeders, especially right now because it's migration. This is a feeder at North Mountain Park, and where we're going to go on Saturday. When you get to North Mountain Park, there'll be a parking lot, there'll be a building in front, and you'll go behind the building and you'll see a gazebo that's covered. So even if it's just drizzling a little bit, we can meet under the gazebo. I'm going to have a scope. And what I like about this picture is how certain birds just share feeders. And the scrub jay, which is the one at the bottom right, tends to be like the top dog, kind of determines, usually they like, I like to have the feeder all to myself, but it is sharing it with the red-winged blackbird. This is a thistle feeder, and this bird is called a golden crown sparrow. So what's really fun for me is that how I know it's fall is that the golden crown sparrows come to the Rogue Valley, and now it's fall. They actually breed north because remember, birds make their babies north and they winter south. Why that is a lot of birds breed up in Canada, Alaska, the tundra, where there's tons of insects, where there's no people, where it's safe to make babies, and there's tons of food. And a lot of birds, even seed-eating birds, need insects when they're making an egg, sitting on an egg and feeding their kids. Insects, the protein is needed. But then in the winter, a lot of these birds are more likely to be seed eaters. So anyhow, this is a golden crowned sparrow. and we will see it at North Mountain Park because it has just arrived. By the way, next week at North Mountain Park, my friend Vince Zowski and I are doing a class on birds. So check out North Mountain Park if you want to take another bird class. And then we're going to have an outing. This is the white crowned sparrow, which also has just arrived. And it's really cool. Sparrows. We have lots of sparrows. Sparrows are birds that live close to the ground. They usually live 11 feet or less close to the ground. They like shrubby habitat. Um, they like to scratch the ground with their little feces to get seeds or insects. So we're talking about feeders. One of my dearest friends is Laura Fleming, and she owns Wild Birds Unlimited. And I have visited her house for years. She lives in a place that's kind of on the forest edge, up in the mountains, a little bit outside of Medford. Anyhow, she has a lot of different feeders. I have often teased her that she had to um, own Wild Birds Unlimited in order to get a discount because she buys about $100 worth of feed every week. So look at these feeders. What we have here. So we have a natural feeder for hummingbirds, which is the flower pot. We have a really nice cover over the hummingbird feeder that's in front. We have some trays that also have covers that keep the rain from getting the seeds wet. We have a feeder on the ground over here on the left bottom. We have a box that's for a bird to go into as part of this look here, because birds need to not only nest in those boxes, but also roost in them just to be in a protected place. This is another part of her yard. These are the suet feeders that certain birds just absolutely love, like woodpeckers, for example. They have this kind of carbohydrate-rich suet, um, usually peanut butter and seeds. And then you can see some other bird feeders here. And so now it's the spring, and she has just thrown out some seeds on the ground. Well, not on the ground, on this piece of wood. And there is a lazuli bunting, which is a migrant male bird. And there is a female purple finch. All the different ways you can feed birds. And then, of course, there's the hummingbird feeder. And this is one of our hummingbird feeders. This is an Annis hummingbird. Annis hummingbirds are very interesting because look at the wings. They beat their wings 50 times every second. Like, is that really possible? So it makes them a little hovercraft. I'm really into length of birds. They're almost 4 inches in length, but their wingspan is about 5 inches. So their wings are not long, but they're very active. They weigh 0.2 ounces, which is not much. Um, anyway, this is an Annis hummingbird. This is a very interesting bird because this is a male, by the way. Look at his little talons. Doesn't have much in the way of feet. Not much into perching, but can perch. Um, Anna's, hummingbirds are really like to live south where all the bugs are. There's one hummingbird that stays here all winter, and that's the Anna's hummingbird, which is kind of an unusual thing that since we're living north. Um, this has happened as a result of people having hummingbird feeders here, which is not a bad thing. If you have a hummingbird feeder up, it is absolutely required to keep it up and keep the water from being frozen every single day in the winter. And if you can't do that, don't have a hummingbird feeder up. They go into torpor at night, and when they wake up in the morning, they have to feed immediately on very cold nights. We don't have a lot of those super cold nights here in the Rogue Valley, but we might have 10 or 12 of them. Um, this is a wonderful strategy for keeping your hummingbird feeder from freezing in the winter. It totally works. Um, the heat from the lights keeps the water from freezing. Hummingbirds love color, especially red. And another way, if you want to have a hummingbird feeder in the winter, is to buy the ones that you can put on the window of your house, because the warmth from the house keeps it from freezing. Plus, you can get this really close up look at hummingbirds. Well, not just birds come to feeders. We know that squirrels come to feeders, which sometimes drive people crazy. Let me see here. This is a squirrel coexisting with a black-capped chickadee. This is a squirrel. There are two options. You can take down the squirrel baffle and I eat your birdseed, or I eat the power line and take down your internet. Some squirrels are quite aggressive, but this baffle actually works because squirrels are so acrobatic, but they can't really get up past the baffle to get to the seeds. Um, I actually have a friend named Steve who didn't put up a bird baffle, but he took like some kind of cocoa butter and he coated the pole. And every time the birds tried to get up the pole, they slid down. And I think it kind of entertained him. Anyway, sometimes there are other critters at your bird feeder. This is a picture that my friend Joanne Hahn took while her friend Lawrence was sleeping. They live on the edge of Ashland, and there was a bear that got into their feeder. Hello. People will ask me, if a bear is at my bird feeder, what should I do? I'm like, you have no chance against a bear. You must take your bird feeder down. Um, Sometimes the bear even finds a bird feeder and shakes out all the bird seed and eats it. Look carefully at this picture. There's a Cooper's hawk in the center of the picture. It's a hawk that likes to eat birds, and it totally hangs out at bird feeders. Because and it waits for a junco or some bird to come by. This is a Cooper's hawk. Let me look at my note here. It's eating a starling. Some people do not consider that a problem. Some people like starlings, some people don't. But anyway, it likes to eat birds. This one has just torn apart and eaten a mourning dove. This one is on the porch of the nature shop in Ashland, of all things, where it has just taken a rock dove down and eaten it. By the way, I want you to notice something. This Cooper's hawk is very streaky in the front. That's a juvenile. This one that's more red is an adult. It's the same bird, but these hawks look different when they're kids than they look as adults. And a huge problem for birds are cats. Um, I can't say enough of the importance of keeping cats indoors. People have built catios for their cats. Um, some of them put on a bird collar like this, which you can buy at Wild Birds Unlimited, it works a little bit because um, cats are non-native species that have a lot of stealth, and they can the little a bell doesn't do a thing, but birds have really good cones and they have really good eyesight for color, and they can actually see the color if they have a colorful cat collar on. Um, so birds really eat a lot of cats, and I think you've all heard the data that we've learned. We've lost 1/3 of our birds in the last 50 years, and I actually think we've lost just a lot more in the last year. So anything you can do to keep cats indoors. And if you do know that there's a feral cat in the neighborhood, I would not have a bird feeder up. If you know that there's rats at night, you might want to take your bird feeder, not have it up. People that know me know that I seem to need to read a poem when I teach class. Why I Feed the Birds by Richard Vargas. Once I saw my grandmother hold out her hand cupping a small offering of seed to one of the wild sparrows that frequented the bird bath she filled with fresh water every day. My grandmother, she stood still, maybe stopped breathing, while the sparrow looked at her, then the seed, then back, as if he was judging her character. He jumped into her hand, began to eat, and she smiled, a woman holding a small god. Before we go on to bird baths, are there any questions from the chat or any comments?
Don't have anything in the chat yet. Is there anyone who has a question that would like to ask it at this point? I guess I have a question for you, Shannon. You mentioned the challenges with squirrels and that rats can be a problem too in an urban environment like a backyard in Ashland. Any additional strategies for or particular bird feeder designs for avoiding the rodent problem?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Um, I did this for a while. um, Birds don't have taste buds, but mammals have taste buds. So Wild Birds Unlimited sells this product that's got habanero spicy salsa in it. And you pour it into your bird seed thing. And squirrels and rats will not eat habanero sauce. But the trick is you have to just do it all the time. So, and in a way, maybe it's worth it. The baffle's a good idea. Um, but I think sometimes just taking in your bird feeder is the right thing to do if it's like with the rats. I mean, really, those mammals are so able to access everything except eating seed with habanero sauce. And by the way, take your questions to Wild Birds Unlimited or the Nature Shop. They're not just salespeople, they're conservationists. For example, Wild Birds Unlimited welcomes you to bring your bird feeder in and they will clean it for you for like $5. You bring it in at night, you pick it up in the morning. Any bird question you have, flickers or making holes in your house, go to them. They actually have answers for, difficult bird questions. All right, I will continue on.
We did
Uh,
just have one comment.
okay.
Dale says, "Watch out for that hot sauce. It can get airborne when you mix it with seed." And
I always wash my hands very carefully after I put it in, but you're right, Gail. It's funny. I don't mind the squirrels. I don't mind feeding the squirrels. I find the squirrels, me, I think a lot of the native critters kind of help each other out. I really think squirrels talk to birds and birds talk to squirrels. But some people don't really like having all their food eaten by squirrels. It's your yard. You decide. Going on, we're going to go to water. So the second thing birds need are water. Um, this is a Stellar's Jay. Um, if you wanna, there's I love the term splish splosh, taking a bath. If you ever watched a Stellar's Jay take a bath in your bird feeder, all the water will be gone in about 2 minutes. They're very vigorous bathers. Um, and I love watching that. Right now at my water bath, I have song sparrows. I have lots of goldfinches in the bath in my water. This is actually my water uh, thing. It's got a pump, so it makes the sound of water, and birds use it a lot. And actually, in the very hot days, we didn't have them this summer, but the last 2 summers, bees use them, insects use them. I really believe in having water available. This is a scrub jay parent teaching a scrub jay kid to take a bath. You can see how the molt of the kid is a young molt. It's called juvenile molt. But they don't get their full look until in the fall. And this is like a jay, like the parent has left the jay, the baby jay, in the bath. And it's like, if you ever look at kid birds like in August or September, they have this look like, now what am I supposed to do? I'm in the water. I forget what my mom told me. Anyway, this looks like a confused kid thinking about taking a bath. We have a lot of pine siskins here and goldfinches, and man, they are just having a water party in this bird bath. These are bush tits that are having a heck of a good time. And just a little nerdy point. Notice how one has a yellow eye. Female bush tits have a yellow eye, and the male bush tits have a brown eye. So there's that one female there. Otherwise, they look the same. Those are western bluebirds, and the one in front looks like a kid who's thinking about taking a bath. But anyway, um, this whole thing with water, um, most birds, I've seen birds drink out of my bird bath, but most birds actually get the water they need from insects. Mostly the taking a bath has got to do with just a cleansing. And birds have a gland near their cloaca. That's the little hole they poop out of. They have a gland called the uropycneal gland that has oils. And every bird has to get that oil, usually with their beak, and actually clean their feathers. The feathers of most birds zip shut so they can be waterproof during rainstorms. They have to rid themselves of insects that are bothersome, and they do it with water. Some do it with dust baths too, but water's a great way. Hey, I love being in water, so maybe they just have fun being in water, I don't know. I was out in the middle of nowhere at a ranch, and I kind of love this picture because this is not like a bird bath. This is a great big water tub on a ranch. We have a flicker. We have cedar waxwings, which are these gorgeous birds that right now there are dozens and dozens and dozens everywhere in Ashland, up high in the trees. I can hear them. Um, they're drinking and they're cohabitating and they're bathing. So That is water. And I think because that was so short, I will just go on to bird boxes. Um, this is a Western bluebird box at the Hill Cemetery at Immigrant Lake. All year round birds use these cavities in the spring. They use them to nest in, to make babies in, and in the winter they use them to roost in because it's a safe place to go. Western bluebirds are here all year round. Western bluebirds are a bird that were near extinction because they nest in holes in trees. And in this world we live in, a lot of trees got cut down for agricultural use. So at some year, I can't remember what year, there was a whole movement of putting Western bluebird boxes or just boxes on fence posts in agricultural areas. And the Western bluebirds flourished because of being provided this home. You think that birds, make nests that look like, a nest in a tree, but that's not, that's a whole nother class. Um, but a lot of birds nest in holes in trees, mostly made by flickers. But anyway, here is a bird box. And here is a migratory bird called a tree swallow, so named because it nests in holes in trees. And it is a box at North Mountain Park, which has boxes up specifically for these birds and other birds. It's the first swallow to return every year. Swallows are completely insect eaters, so they need to leave here and go south where the insects are. But then they come back, and when they are making their nest, they actually find feathers to put in their nest. This is a tree swallow putting the nest in the bird box, and inside the bird box is a very soft nest made with feathers for the eggs. This is a tree swallow. The adult is on the outside of the box. There's a kid on the inside. And my hypothesis is that the kid wants to be fed again. And the parent has been feeding this kid every 10 minutes for the last like 10 days. And he's yelling at the kid, go out and find your own food, which the tree swallow will show the kid tree swallow how to do any day now. Here is a white-breasted nuthatch, also in a bird nesting box. Birds that nest in holes in boxes are house wrens and bluebirds and nuthatches. And there's probably about 30 different species of birds and mammals that nest in holes in trees. My friend Lee French makes bird houses, and he custom makes them like this, which I think is very, very charming. You can also purchase bird boxes from the Nature Shop and Wild Birds Unlimited. And when you do, they actually have a handout they can give you that tells you, like, if you have a target bird you want to nest in your bird box, they'll let you know where to put it up, how high to put it up, and give you information about that. Um, this is a bird box by Lee French that I put up, and I don't think that black-capped chickadee ever had babies in it, but it totally went in there in the winter as a safe place to roost at night. I mean, think about it. If you want birds to be in your yard, they also have to have places to sleep at night that are safe and warm and protected from cats. Cats can't get in there. Who else uses bird boxes? Well, definitely the screech owl. I love screech owls. They they are here all year round. Uh, for the first time living in the house I'm living in now, which I've lived in for 4 years, I heard one the other morning. They're in all of our backyards. Screech owls are very prevalent. They make a sound like a bouncing ball, like boop, 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 boop. They're totally nighttime, not totally, but dusk and dawn, but mostly night. They're very small, and this is a screech owl in a box up by my friend's house who lives on Granite Street. That's what it looks like when you have baby screech owls in your box. That is so freaking cute. I want you to look at this picture. So we have the box, we have the parent owl in the hole. Now go down to the bottom corner. There's a kid. So when the baby screech owls are born in a box, they're in an egg, and they're in an egg for a few weeks. And then they come out of the egg and they're completely dependent on their parent feeding them mice, moths, insects, whatever. They're carnivores. And then when the baby is ready to leave the box, it can't really fly. It's only been in a box. So it actually goes to the round corner and flaps its wings, does a lot of PT, 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 and then it jumps out of the box, and it branches, meaning it goes to a nearby branch. So this baby has probably just left this box and it's on a nearby branch. And now it's kind of wondering, what am I doing out here? Its parent will stay nearby and try to help him out. There's a kid owl, kid screech owl. We're leaving bird boxes and we're gonna look at shelter. Shelter not, well, how about if there's any questions before we do that?
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. There is a question from Dale, and I had the same question myself, which was, what is the purpose of that metal ring around the hole? We noticed in several of your pictures there were
I know.
metal rings there, and can you speak to that?
Yeah. There are two species of birds that are non-native, the starling and the house sparrow. They were birds that were brought here for various reasons, and they are birds that go into boxes and take eggs and throw them on the ground or eat the babies or do things that are not bird friendly. So the rings are made to allow the species, the designated species like the bluebird or the swallow, to be able to get through the hole, but it's not big enough for the starling or the house sparrow. So that's why those rings are there. And another question someone asked me is, why are there two holes? Why are there two holes? And I asked Lee, the guy that made these, and it's kind of like an exit route. So if somehow a predator, there's other predators too. I mean, predators can be little chipmunks, they could be snakes. If somehow a predator gets in and it's going to wreak havoc on the babies, at least the parents can get out. Yeah.
I have
Any
a
other?
question
Yeah.
for you. And for years, I mean years and years, I've noticed the owl in Lithia Park, right? The screech owl that's up in that cedar tree. And
Yeah.
I've often wondered, because it's just been there's been an owl there forever, and I know it's not the same owl. Do they hand the box down, or is it just a first come, first serve, whoever gets it?
What's the question?
Well, do the owls, like, does their progeny tend to come back and occupy
Oh,
the box,
oh,
or is
no,
it just sort of whoever finds it gets it?
no. There's something called site fidelity, site SITE. That means that birds want to come back to the same place to make babies. And when those screech owls make babies in that box, they're going to come back and make more babies the next year. But their babies have to go get their own hole. They're like they they take care of them, they help them once they fledge, and then they're like, go somewhere else. This is our hole. So pretty much like I know my friend that lives on Granite Street where those big Chinese statues are, they have a bird box and the parents are all every year. And in Lithia Park, the same thing. It turns out Lithia Park is a great place for screech owls because there's lights at night that where moths gather, and those moths are like a great food source. Um, and sometimes I notice, like you, Eugene, sometimes in Lithia Park, I'll see the birds, and then some years I won't see them. And they didn't use the box in Lithia Park, although the ones on my friend's house on Granite Street, right on the corner of Granite, where you go down the hill to the park where the Chinese big statues are, behind their house, there's a redwood and it has a box. Religiously every year, there are owls in that box. But sometimes in Lithia Park, not so much. And I think that sometimes if there's threats to a box, they won't they won't nest there. And I have a number of friends that have like, oh, I had screech owls in my box year after year after year after year. Well, something came along and made it so that's not a safe place to breed. It takes so much energy to lay eggs and take care of kids that if there's any threat in the neighborhood, be it a cat, be it a Cooper's hawk, or whatever, or just people, you know, they're not going to breed in a box.
One more question for you. Um, Kathy asks, when birds that do multiple broods over the summer do they tend to stay in one place or move on after the first brood fledges? And
There's
she said,
very few birds that do multiple broods, but mourning doves do. There's a few birds when the weather's like we had the perfect summer for multiple broods for a few species, but most species don't do that. But the year-round birds sometimes do that. You know, they're going to use the same that site fidelity thing as a real thing. I mean, once a bird kind of establishes like this is a good place, this worked out, and you know, bird intelligence is not something we understand because our brains work so differently, but birds have this amazing knowledge of this is a safe place. Once it's a safe place to make babies, they'll do it again there. But they won't usually, they might, if it's a hole, they'll go to the same hole. If it's a nest, they usually have to rebuild a nest, but they'll do it in the same vicinity.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, good questions. I love questions. Um, so shelter and healthy habitats. So I know I'm preaching to the choir when I talk about plant native plants, berries, scrub, leave piles of leaves, leave the leaves. Um, and when you're thinking about making your yard bird friendly, you want there to be different, like you want there to be big trees, and then you want there to be shrubs that are a certain height, and then lower shrubs, and then you want ground cover. You want all those different things. Birds like edges. They don't like everything the same. So anyway, in the summer, berries are a really big deal. And we have thousands of robins that eat berries in the summer, which is very cool. By the way, this is a male robin. They are also a little dimorphic, meaning that the female robin, the head isn't as black, the chest isn't as red, but you really need binoculars to see the difference, probably. Cedar waxwings. This could be one of my favorite birds. These guys, they're so friendly. They find berries. They're in big flocks. Certain birds flock in the winter. when they're together, I've seen them do this. They get in a flock, they get the berries, then they get all on a limb and they pass the berry down. Hey, you take the berry. No, you take it. No, let's give it let's just pass the berry down and then you take it. No, you take it. They share their berries. And if the berries are a little fermented, they get a little stoned out on them. But anyway, look how gorgeous cedar waxwings are. You know, when I think about shelters in yards, this is from a friend of mine that lives at the manor in Medford, and it's just on her deck. She has this little thing, and the duck laid its eggs in there. I mean, it wasn't even a place for ducks and to lay eggs, so you never really know where birds will feel they are safe. But here is her little baby ducks. And then my friend, we're just looking at different places in yards where the birds felt safe. This is my friend Kelly Sachs's yard. She has a porch, and this is a female California quail. And she felt safe enough to lay her eggs there. Some birds mate, and their eggs are in a nest in a tree. Some birds mate, and their eggs are in no, eggs are in holes in a tree or in a box. Some birds mate and they lay their eggs on the ground, and that's called precocial. Ground birds, some ground birds lay their eggs on the ground. Quails do, killdeer do, a lot of ducks do, Canada geese do mostly. And this breeding strategy is called precocial because when the eggs open and the baby comes out of the egg, it stands up, shakes itself off, looks around, and is fully feathered and often feeds itself, or at least is shown food by the parent. That's called precocial because those birds that are born in the boxes or in the nest, they're altricial. They're completely dependent upon their parent for usually a few weeks. So anyway, here is a female California quail. That is the eggs, which looks like they're just in some pine needles on the ground. Look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 eggs. Pretty little eggs. There's one beginning to come out. And then when they come out, I know this picture, you're like, well, where are they? Well, they really camouflage pretty well. The male California quail is in the lead there, the female and the kids. Look how vulnerable they are. They're on the ground, they're walking around, they live in shrub. So this is like when it's great to have shrub in your yard. And the parents stay with them until they're old enough to take care of themselves. Now here's a house finch. So we're talking about birds nesting in your yard. There are some birds, usually birds that have the name house in their name, house finch, that will literally nest on or near your house. This house finch is nesting in a porch. This is actually a male, so he's not really on a nest, but he's near a nest, or maybe he's helping the female make a nest. Most birds will not nest anywhere near human beings or want to be anywhere near human beings because we're predators and we're a problem. But some birds will nest near human beings because there's something about being near human beings that's helpful and protective for them. House finch male. Here is a robin. They will nest near people. This is in my friend's umbrella. I think I have her name here. Let's see if I remember it. I can't remember the name of the woman that gave me this. But anyway, she took pictures. This is a female robin. The male and female mated. She built the nest. She has this great big, wonderful, robust chest, and the nest is a lot of grasses and then with mud, and then she kind of lathes, Laths, lays out the inside of the nest to make it a very solid cup. Then after they mate, the nest is made, and then she lays one egg. Now they've mated. The sperm is viable for several days. So she lays one egg the first day, two eggs the second day, three eggs the third day, and then no more. So robins will lay up to like 7 eggs, but something in this mama robin knew that all she could do was successfully raise 3 birds. Normally, we do not film, take pictures of, or mess around with breeding birds. But in the case of the robin doesn't really care that much. The female's gone. She's just taking a picture. She's not interrupting the breeding behavior. Then the babies get born. This is altricial. These are birds that are born completely dependent upon their parents. Eyes are closed. Their feathers are not flight feathers. They're just growing feathers. They just need to eat. They're basically just a tube. And the parents need to put food in that end of the tube and let them poop and just keep doing that for about 2 weeks until they get bigger and bigger. Now we have them almost outsizing that nest. This is the female still bringing them food, and they're still kind of yelling for food. They have great big orange gapes of mouths. But pretty soon, the parent's going to not feed them anymore, and they're going to have to be shown how to feed themselves. But this is what Eugene was kind of asking. When the kids kind of get more independent, they will need to go away and find their own territory, live their own life. Go. This is like, it's way time. In fact, they're making kind of kid noises now, and it's making them vulnerable to predation if they stay in the nest any longer. So the parent's not going to feed them. They have to leave the nest. And then when they do leave the nest, they do the same thing that screechy owl does. They really can't fly. They do a little PT. They jump out of the nest. They land on the ground. They can't fly. This is why cats absolutely have to be kept indoors in May. This is when fledglings are on the ground. This is when rehab centers get called because there are cats eating baby birds. Um, but this baby robin will be on the ground, flap its wings, and it's going to get to a branch. And then next year it's going to look like that. So we all know why it's good to look at birds. I mean, it's fun. I am going to read a poem, and the poem is called Such Singing in the Wild Branches by Mary Oliver. This is a hermit thrush. It was singing, and finally I heard him among the first leaves. Then I saw him clutching the limb in an island of shade with his red-brown feathers, all trim and neat for the new year. First, I stood still and thought of nothing. Then I began to listen. Then I was filled with gladness. And that's when it happened, when I seemed to float, to be myself, a wing or a tree, and I began to understand what the bird was saying, and the sands in the glass stopped, and for a pure white moment, while gravity sprinkled upward like rain rising, it became difficult to tell just what it was that was singing. Oh, yeah, it was the thrush, to be sure. but it seemed not a single thrush, but himself and all of his brothers and sisters and the trees around them, as well as the gliding long tail clouds and the perfectly blue sky. All of them were singing. And of course, yes, so it seemed. So was I. Such soft and solemn and perfect music doesn't last for more than a few moments. It's one of those magical places wise people like to talk about. One of the things they say about it, and it's true, is that once you've been there, you're there forever. This is my email address, and I can take some questions, and then I have some postscript messages if there's time, but let's first check on questions.
We haven't had anything else come into the chat yet. Would anybody like to ask Shannon a question? Shannon, I have one for you. Going back to water, we had a presentation from an ODFW biologist, and he was a game biologist, and was trying to discourage folks from having water sources like bird feeders because of the problem of deer spreading disease between each other when they drink out of those bird feeders. I wonder if you have any thoughts or strategies for folks who want, or sorry, not feeders, but watering spaces who want to maintain a bird bath. You
Yeah,
mentioned cleaning it often, but talk to us a little bit about that.
yeah. You know, I have a closed-in backyard. Um, I think most people, most people, if you want to feed birds or if you have a water source, no, you don't want to have it. It needs to be in an enclosed yard. That's just the truth of it, you know. Um, so yeah, it's against the law I to throw out feed and let deer eat it. I mean, that's just like a bad idea. And so I think providing water in that way is a bad idea too. Yeah.
We have a question here from Dale. He says, you mentioned shelter. Do some birds like open spaces and others like being under tree cover?
You know, I'm very aware that most birds like being under tree cover. Um, in fact, one of the things I was going to talk about was that if you're going to have a bird feeder or a water feature, there really should be a place nearby where if a cat's looking at a bird or whatever, that the birds can go and be in the shrub. Um, so I would highly recommend that. I'm trying to think about, you know, birds liking open spaces. My yard doesn't really, the birds in my yard are not in any of the open spaces. They're kind of in the trees and in the shrubs and stuff. So yeah, that's what I think about that.
Dale also followed up with a comment just saying that he hangs his bird bath from oak branches using clothesline. So I guess to get it up maybe a little closer to the habitat where birds are comfortable and out of deer space.
Yeah. Like I have my I have my bird feeder on one of those rods, and I have to make sure those rods are not anywhere near like a tree for squirrels, or um and some people even put their, me included, their pole kind of in the middle of shrub so that it's not easy for cats or anything to get up them. Um, so I think if you have a bird feeder in your yard, I know I just kind of notice where the birds feel safe and where they go, and I think you'll notice that too. Just reminders to avoid pesticides and herbicides to reduce lawn space, use native plants, keep outdoor lights low or off. We discourage outdoor lights. If you have windows, you can put up some different designs on your window that you can buy at the bird store, or some people hang yarn or they hang strips of tinsel. We don't want birds hitting windows for sure. Um, I know that I feel like this group probably knows all the really great plants to have in your yard, but serviceberry, red flowering currant, Oregon grape, snowberry, and I'm sure it's you people if you want to make your own comments about what would be good. The more layers, the more birdie your yard becomes. And I think those are my major points. Um, Certainly always encouraging folks to just get to know the birds in your yard. I feel like I'm I teach a lot of bird classes and I'm a bird guide, but I'm less about identifying the name of the bird than I am with looking at behaviors and kind of asking, what's that bird doing? What's it saying? Why is it doing that? To me, that is what I love about birding. I mean, some people like keeping lists and knowing everything else about birds, but I really get to know the birds by watching them at my bird feeder. Um, Always reminding people to support bird conservation, Klamath Bird Observatory, or whatever organization you want to support. And yeah, those are the main things. So any other questions or
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah, we had a couple other questions trickle in. Karen asks, what depth is best for a bird bath feature?
You know, um, that's a good question. I think any depth is okay, but what I want, like my depth, my bird bath feeder, I notice the birds go all around the edge, and then I have rocks in it. I also have a pump, so mine has water like filtering through. Um, the birds need a place to maybe perch inside your water. So you can just make sure there's some rocks or something in there that they can stand on. It needs not to be too deep, but I know my scrub jays, they like really deep water. I don't know. It varies. So I think any depth is really fine.
Um,
You'll notice when you see what birds use it.
Trish asked a question, which I think you kind of addressed there, which is there a list of plants that can provide food sources for birds throughout the season rather than using a bird feeder?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's great. You know, except for hummingbirds and hummingbird feeders in the winter, feeders themselves are supplemental. They're not, people ask me this question. I can't have a bird feeder up because I'm not going to have it up all year round. Not a problem. Have it up when you want to have it up, take it down when you want to take it down, not a big deal. But you're right. Having birds being able to access your berry trees. And probably Marcy or you, Eugene, can answer better than me, other than the ones I already mentioned. Really great um, berry plants. Do you want to mention a few?
Well, there are, and we've been talking about this in the land search program, but our native shrubs, and of course, there's a whole variety of typical riparian shrubs that we have, but trees like chokecherry and the rose hip or the wild rose, things that have a berry that persists into the winter months and is available, in the time of year when there's the least amount of food out there. Those are ones I think of. And, I think this might be a resource or a question that you could answer by visiting KBO, Klamath Bird Observatory's website, which has got a huge resource library there. There's an education tab, which has a whole bunch of great information, and then a resource library tab that you can access everything from academic papers to, simple guides for doing the things we've been talking about tonight, creating good habitat in your yard. So I'd really advise people to check out Klamath Bird Observatory's website and just look at the resources there. There's just a lot of great stuff. I mean, all the way out to, they participated in helping to develop guides for managing oak woodlands, for a variety of resources, but birds are included in that because we know how important they are. So check out KBO's website. A lot of good information there to answer questions that you might have about how to design, good bird habitat in your yard.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I encourage people to get on the email. It doesn't cost anything to get on the email. Next week, Jamie Stevens is giving a presentation on oak restoration. Um, the statistics really vary, but in the Pacific Northwest, we've lost something like 70% of our oak trees. And so KBO has decided not just to focus on birds, but to focus on oak restoration as well, because we used to think birds were the indicators of the health of the environment, but if there isn't an environment, there will not be birds. So we've changed our conservation ethic and are focusing seriously on oak restoration. And I have to tell you, some people don't like scrub jays, but scrub jays are our primary oak restoration specialists. I can attest, I don't know how many new oak trees that I have in my yard. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to support all of them. But scrub jays are really good at planting oak trees. So yay to that.
And kind of everything else they can get a hold
And
of. I have
yeah, I know.
peanut
I know.
trees and other things coming up in my yard from things they find at bird feeders.
Yeah,
Um,
they're
but hey, I
hysterical.
wanted I wanted to also mention you said presentation, which made me think about we have another presentation coming with Shannon in February 10th, 2026. Again, a 6 to 7:30 presentation, and we will be talking about woodpeckers and sapsuckers and sort of drilling in a little bit more on those species. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's a
Guys,
pun.
mark your calendar.
Cool. So for those of you coming on Saturday, you don't have to know anything about birds at all. If you have binos, bring them. If you don't, that's fine. If it's raining, don't let that stop you. There's nothing more fun than being under the gazebo in a little drizzle, looking at birds. Um, just stay as long as you want to stay. If you park in the neighborhood across, you can come when you want, leave when you want. Yeah, does anyone have any questions about the Saturday event or anything else?
Well, I see some comments here about this being a great presentation and really enjoying your photos. So thank you. I know personally, I really enjoyed your poems and found that really uplifting. So thanks a lot for a great presentation and looking forward to seeing you out there on Saturday.
That sounds great. If anyone has anything, I love interaction. So there's my email. You can tell me a story. You can ask a question. You can write a haiku and send it to me. I think um, connecting with each other around nature is big medicine for all of us. And plus, I do believe in not only enjoying nature, but giving back since it gives so much to us. And that's the reciprocity of it all. Take care of your yard, take care of the birds and the plant native plants. So I'll see you all
Well,
Saturday, but I'll stay around for a few more minutes in case there's questions.
thank you, Shannon, and thank you for all you do for wild bird conservation and for helping to educate folks like us about it. Your message is very well, received by land stewards, and we appreciate you.
Okay.
All right, folks, that's a wrap for tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next um, community education class. Thank you.